Good morning. Not the typical time I'd make a video, but I just wanted to get this video out. I had a great comment on one of my videos yesterday from someone who I assume to be Muslim, and I really thank you for watching. And thank you for reaching out. These are the types of dialogues I want to start and reach out to. You know, this was something I was upset at this video with Ben Shapiro where he's speaking to someone from CARE. He should have had some kind of a platform of saying, well, how you know, what his vision is for American Muslims. Instead of just putting down CARE, it should have been something positive. And I think that was a lost opportunity on Ben Shapiro's part, but that's part of the problem with having these, you know, quick little arguments on the news that, you know, last 3 minutes, and you can't really get a word in edgewise, and nothing really gets accomplished with these things. So I was going to put on the screen what the comment said, but because I don't have reception here, I wasn't able to open it, which I thought I should be able to open it. But in any event, I somewhat remember what he said. He said that 80 to 90% of Muslims voted Democrat for the past 10 years. And the Republican Party is, in his words, a white Christian party that wants to make wars against Muslim countries, wants to ban Muslims from coming to America. Why would any Muslim want to vote for that party? And the issue here is the media narrative. Because if you learn history, and I'm not saying, and my answer was that this is an ignorant answer. I'm not saying you're ignorant, because I can't blame most people who get all their news from CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times and all of these other left-wing organizations, which, by the way, are by and far supported by the left-wing Zionists. There are many different types of Zionists, but these are the ones that are the biggest problems, both for America and for the world, and really for all people in the Holy Land, Muslims, Christians, Jews, wherever they are. The radical left-wing Zionists who don't really, for them, Zionism is more of a tool. It's not a goal. It's just a tool to take people away from old traditional religion, things like this, as opposed to some of the more right-wing Zionists who tend to be religious in their way. I still disagree with them religiously, but they're not as problematic as the extreme leftist, socialist, Marxist Zionists, who for the most part today have become what we'd call post-Zionist in a certain sense, because to them, you know, the Zionism was really just a step in taking people away from traditional religion. It wasn't really about settling the Holy Land or anything like that. It was specifically about destroying tradition, destroying religion, and they just used that as a tool. I mean, what better tool to use, really, than to go and attack in the palace of the king? And these are the types of people who run the media. They're, by and large, coming from backgrounds that can be traced to either the Sabbatean or the Frankist movements. I know a lot of Muslims, especially from Turkey, are familiar with the Sabbateans and realize, you know, what a problem this group is. I mean, that's where they exist today openly to a certain extent, and still they're not really open. But the seeds that the Sabbateans planted over the years have grown into these various left-wing radical movements. But the real question here is, I mean, you say, well, why would Muslims vote Republican? Before I go and defend the Republican Party, which I would like to do, the better question is, why would Muslims vote Democrat? Meaning, the option is not necessarily Republican versus Democrat. You could go third party, you could just not vote, which a lot of people, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately do. Why is it by default go to the Democrats? Because if you know not only the history of the Democrats, which I know a lot of people are going to say, well, that stopped in the 60s, which isn't really true. It just transformed, the ideology stayed exactly the same. It's just the way that it's being manifested today that changed in somewhat of a way, and really in many ways didn't even really change. But to my dear neighbors, I would like to say at least cousins, if not brothers and sisters, in the Muslim community. We have so much in common. Daily devotional prayer, monotheism, dietary laws, things like that. We should be natural allies. And many times we have been, and sometimes we are, sometimes we're not. But again, a lot of that has to do not with Judaism, but with Zionism, particularly, and not necessarily, again, even though I disagree with religious Zionism, it's not the religious Zionists who are the problem, it's more the secular, left-wing, radical Zionists who are just anti-religious in general. That's been recognized, very well, in the Muslim community in the Holy Land, they saw the debauchery and things that the Israelis brought, to the Holy Land, the immorality and so forth that, both religious Jews and Muslims were trying to shield their children from, and here the Zionists come and bring it into, like I said, into the palace of the king, pretty much spitting in God's face, the type of debauchery and evil that they brought. And that's besides the other issues of Zionism, which are more parochial, and a little bit more esoteric. The big issue, though, that I want to bring out here is, well, why would a Muslim who is a traditional, pious, religious person support the Democrat Party that not only pushed and accomplished in America a redefinition of marriage, but tries to punish anybody who has a personal religious view that opposes their view? Meaning the whole story with the baking the cakes for the same gender marriages, that's the equivalent of forcing a halal restaurant to serve pork. And that's basically what the Democrats, that's the obvious next step. Forcing a kosher or halal restaurant to serve pork. And then people are going to say, well, your restaurant is discriminating against us because here we are, we're Christians and we want to eat here and we want to eat pork and Christians eat pork, and how dare you not serve me this that I'm requesting? Well, we don't offer that, Just the same, the baker, Christian baker, said, yeah, I sell cakes, but you can have this cake and serve it at your wedding, even if it's two men who are quote unquote getting married. But I can't, make the cake with the figurines of two guys on top. That's not the type of stuff I sell. And it's really the same thing as going to a halal or a kosher restaurant and saying, you got to serve me pork, or a kosher restaurant and say, you got to serve me a cheeseburger. And that's who the Democrats are. They want to destroy traditional religion, and quite often the way they do it is by infiltrating the most sacred places of religion. And that's why, and all radicals, and that's why, like we see in the Holy Land, the Zionists going specifically to the Holy Land in their effort to take all people of all Abrahamic faiths, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, away from their traditional faiths and trying to transform them into Israelis instead of Jews, Muslims, Christians. So that's the that's part of the issue here. Is it's not just, and people have to wake up and realize that in my own community as well. I mean, I think maybe now we're finally opening our eyes and realizing that, but when this came up in New York State, the redefinition of marriage, a lot of people in our community said, well, that's none of our business. That's none of our business. We just got to worry about us. And now look what's happening with the schools. The schools are being attacked. And it's not going to be too long before they're going to say, yeah, if you want to have your own private schools, you're going to have to teach this curriculum that goes in polar opposite to our values. And that's what the Democrats are pushing. The Republicans believe in school choice. Republicans are not going to attack your madrasa, but the Democrats will and are. I don't really know what the Islamic view on abortion is. I mean, in Judaism, it's also somewhat different than it is in the secular world. And also different than it is in certain Christian communities. There's different views in Christianity about abortion. My view as far as America is that, and it's really the same thing in America, is that these are not national issues, these are state-by-state issues. Now people are going to say, but it was the Democrats who pushed for state rights in the Civil War, so here's the proof that there's the flip, because now all of a sudden it's the Republicans who are pushing for state rights and not the Democrats, and the truth is it's not true. In the Civil War, and before the Civil War, the South, the Democrats, which is the same thing, the pro-slavery groups, which were the Democrats, were not for states' rights, because when, what was that case, Plessy versus Ferguson, right? Where maybe I'm confused with a different case. I don't remember the case at hand. I think it was Plessy versus Ferguson. But there was a slave who was brought into a northern state, and he argued that he should be free, and the state argued that he should be free because this is not a slave state. And so essentially that Supreme Court battle imposed slavery on all the states. And that's the type of thing that the Democrats do. The same thing with Roe versus Wade, the same thing with Oberfeld, whatever it is. Is that when they can't get their way through legislation, they push it through the courts. And these are the types of things that you are essentially finding in with what's going on today. And so this is why, again, so now that I've pretty much showed how, because it's not either or, it's not either you're Republican or you're Democrat. There are other options out there. You can start your own party, you can all kinds of things you can do, and you could just choose not to vote. There's other things. But obviously, we live in this essentially two-party system. So how do we manage with that and so forth? I've made the argument against the Democrats. What about for the Republicans? So why should Muslims and other minority groups be Republicans? And all right, I know, I have the historical argument that the Republicans freed the slaves. Dr. Martin Luther King was a Republican. Bringing it into more of the modern era. But then they're saying, well, something changed somewhat around the time when Dr. King was murdered, was assassinated, and now it's the Republicans who are the bad guys and the Democrats who are the good guys. That's kind of the narrative that's out there. Is it really true? Time and time again, all the things that President Trump was pushing is the same things that President Obama did. Quite often, President Obama was able to do the things that the courts prevented President Trump from doing. Vis-a-vis temporary holds on immigration or visits or so forth from certain countries. The media like to call this a Muslim ban. Well, it's not a Muslim ban. It was a temporary hold on certain countries, some of which were Muslim majority, some of which were not, until people can be vetted to see, are they dangerous to come into the country? Nothing to do with the religion. It wasn't like, do you pray 5 times a day and do you eat halal food only? No, that's not what it was about. It was about, there are certain countries that are unstable, that have a lot of terrorists, things like that. And we got to see who they are. It doesn't matter what religion you are coming from those countries. I mean, there were Jewish people from Yemen who were prevented from coming. And they weren't even coming from Yemen. They were like coming from Israel, but because they were Yemeni, Taimani, they had to be temporarily held and checked out. It wasn't about them being Muslim. This was a few cases of Jewish people from Yemen who were held for a day or two to see who they were. And the legitimate role of federal government is to protect the people. And sometimes that takes a few days or a few weeks or a few months to see if somebody is okay to come into the country. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's why we have a federal government. Is the Republican Party making wars against Muslim countries? I mean, Obama made more wars against Muslim countries, and President Trump has been ending those wars. And it wasn't about the countries being Muslim. Not under Obama, not under Bush, and not under Trump. It wasn't us versus them, Christian versus Muslim. It's nothing about saying, well, if you're this religion, you pray 5 times a day and you don't eat pork, well, we don't want you in the country. It's nothing about that. That's not how America works. But America does work to say, if you want to destroy America, you hate America, you want to kill people in America, I don't care what your religion is, you can't hide behind religion and do that. So that's, and the thing is, I would think that most of the Muslims who either are American born or who have emigrated to America and are Americans now or in the process of becoming Americans came here to escape terrorism, to escape radicalism. Not to, they wanted a better life than they had in those countries. I have one very good friend who's an imam. He came from another country. He said if he would go back to the country he's an American now. He became a citizen. Very proud of him. And if he would go back to his home country, he would for sure be imprisoned, and he would probably be killed. And this is a more moderate Muslim country that he came from, traditionally moderate, to almost an extreme of secularism. And a lot of that has to do not with religion, but with politics. I mean, there is a religious aspect to it, but it's mostly a political issue. And America is protecting him. And not only protecting him, but protecting the leader of his movement, who lives in America now, is not an American citizen yet, might be in the process of becoming one. He has his green card. And a man with, I think, millions of followers around the world, who has refuge here in America. And the country he came from would like to get him back. So, and I understand not everybody's a follower of this particular imam, that, or I guess technically retired imam, that my friend follows, and yeah, it's beauty of diversity in the world. But in America, he's protected, and he the question is, are a lot of these people who claim to be leading the Muslim community really, in your best interests? I mean, it's the same question we have in the Jewish community. Are a lot of these people, the secular leaders, the lay leaders, or the self-proclaimed lay leaders, and various Jewish organizations really in the best interest of the Jewish people? I, for a long time, have said no. So I'm not, I don't really have any interest in what the ADL and a lot of these left-wing groups, B'nai B'rith and Federation and all these things, even though I participated, AIPAC even, really, a lot of these groups, they don't speak for me. That's part of the beauty of America, is that you don't need to be pigeonholed into a group. I mean, you can be a good religious Muslim who prays 5 times a day, and you don't need CARE to protect you. Because America is a country of individualism. It's supposed to be. That's the Republican platform, is protecting the rights of the individual. And you're right. Your rights as Muslims are protected. I don't think the Democrats are really in your interest. They want to undermine religious freedom. They want to really divide and conquer, destroy religious institutions from the inside. I mean, they've been doing it. Whether it's the Jewish community has been decimated by these left-wing groups to the point where the vast majority of Jews not only are not religious, but many of them are leftist. It's happening in the Catholic Church. It's happening really all over in most of the more mainstream, mainline Protestant churches, quote unquote. It certainly has happened over the years, but even there's an infiltration even into the evangelical community. It's which on one hand, that's part of the beauty of America, is that you can be what you want, you can do what you want, but on the other hand, it's not it's not the way the media has been portraying it, for sure. These elitists want to control you, whereas the Republicans want to give you freedom. I think that's the biggest difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, and it's in the name. Democracy means the rule of the majority. Republicanism means we don't have a king. And so the rights of the minority are protected from the tyranny of the majority. And that's what it really comes down to. Do you want a totalitarian organization like the Democratic Party, or do you want freedom, which is the Republican Party? And that freedom includes the freedom to be Muslim, Jewish, Catholic, atheist, Buddhist, Hindu, whatever you are, whatever you want to be. That's what we got. All right, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. All right, tell me what you think. I'm not here to pontificate. I'm here to have a conversation, to have a dialogue. Thank you for the comment, and let's see. All right, thank you.